Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devine and Philippe Bargil. Welcome back. French football has returned with the first weekend of 2016 with Coupe de France action, which fulfilled its New Year's resolution of providing us with shocks and plenty of talking points. But before we get started, here is the latest news. In a bumper weekend for football in France, the Ligue teams put out strong sides and most top-flight teams were duly rewarded, although not with some hiccups. Bordeaux went behind twice to third division side Fréjus San Rafael, needing a stoppage time window from Diego Roland to pull out a 3-2 win. Saint-Etienne defeated Rouen L'Etape, who had famously reached the round of 16 3 years ago on penalties in a nervy finish for Les Verts. Toulouse, Lyon and Monaco all cruised through their matches, winning 5-0, 7-0 and 10-2 respectively, although Monaco striker Lassine Traoré was sent off for an incident in the tunnel at half-time. Not all the first division sides progressed though, as Caen were eliminated by Marseille on penalties after a scoreless draw, Steve Mondonda's heroics keeping the 10-men visitors in the match. Although Benjamin Mendy looks set to miss up to 6 weeks after going off injured. One of the biggest surprises, however, was Reims' 4-1 loss to Chambly, with Olivier Guégan having fielded a strong 11. The National side were powered by a first-half hat-trick from Wilfred Louis Daniel. A word before moving on for fifth side Granville, who beat Laval 2-1, and Sarreguemens, who if I think I've pronounced that wrong, but apologies to them, who held off Valenciennes to win 1-0, a surprise pair of results for the two Ligue 2 sides that leaves the winners the lowest ranked clubs remaining in the competition and pitted against each other in the next round in a surprise coincidence. Nice and Rennes are in action at the time of recording, with the draw having just finished. Holders Paris Saint-Germain will host Toulouse, and Angers have drawn Bordeaux, as well as Marseille hosting Montpellier, and Gazélec Ajaccio hosting Guingamp in ties that will be played in the middle week of January, on January 19th and 20th. That's all for now. For all your latest news and transfer rumours, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and our Twitter feed at GFN_France. Also, check out our new transfer show. It's called the GFFN Mercato Show. We will bring you each week during the January transfer window. That should be up later this week. We start this week with a team that have promised their fans that a new year will bring them new cheer, and that certainly seemed to happen over this weekend. A 7-0 win for Lyon against 6th tier side Limoges helped new manager Bruno Genesio get off to the ideal start. Eric, how has the break been for the club and their changes in manager?
Well, I think the first thing we have to look at is that we're getting players back. Leon are getting players back from injury, and I think that's really the key thing. Christophe Jallet featured again. Aldo Kalulu is back, and Lacazette and Valbuena are still set to come back from injury soon as well. Jordan Ferry did not feature at the weekend, but should be ready to go as well. And Genesio opted for a 4-3-3, which Fournier had been playing towards the end of his reign. And even though it was against a group of non-professionals, the team looked really good. This was definitely a more offensively minded 4-3-3 than we've seen from Lyon in the past. He had gone along at the base of midfield, and Serge Darder and Grenier as the other two midfielders. So those two players who we've seen both in their time at Lyon and in Darder's prior stint at Malaga are players who like to get forward. They create a nice balance. Grenier is a bit more of a crafty player in terms of playing balls over the top, and like Darder is a little bit more direct, but definitely a more offensive way of looking at things rather than like Ferry and Tolisso, who are good players but aren't quite as dynamic going forward as they perhaps can be. Tolisso a little bit less so than Ferry, and then for the wide players, he had Cornet and Ghezal. Ghezal had looked good, also playing in the 4-3-3. I'm thinking particularly about the match against the matches earlier against Lakes of Valencia. So Yeah, I think this is and then Bobu started up top. Sorry. So yeah, I think this is a really positive start. Again, this is a lower ranked opponent, but we saw in the match against Tours that these, even though Leon had won that these matches aren't always that easy for top flight clubs. I mean, Reims put out a strong 11 and lost 4-1. I understand that Limoges aren't aren't as high of a level. But nevertheless, I think this is a really positive way to approach the squad in Genesio's debut. It's something that I think we need to look at as a real uh, galvanizing result for Leon and something they can really build on going forward. I was quite pleased to see the result and the lineup that he put out.
Philip, kind of continuing on with what Eric mentioned there about that this possibly being a galvanising result, it's something that probably most people would have expected against a sixth tier side, really. But could Leon really build from this platform that they've put on at the weekend?
It depends what Genesio wants to do with his squad. Like Eric said, a very simple, very straightforward 4-3-3, and it was a welcome change from Fournier not knowing what to do with the diamond shape 4-4-2, with playing three at the back. There, he just made it dead simple, with Bouvet, Cornet, and Ghezal, and there's a confidence level will get back because of that kind of win. So it's a nice, let's just say it's a nice way of starting the year. Definitely a nice way. Even though Monaco did outscore them, unfortunately for Lyon, but it's still great to see that these players can still play football and that Lyon can be quite threatening going forward, even though it was, Limoges, which I think have never really reached that stage in the Coupe de France that often. So it's nice that Genesio has started with keep things simple. Just play that 4-3-3 and keep playing it, and then you'll see what happens. Try and make a couple of deals in the transfer market if you can. Maybe get rid of the players that are just not good enough to be playing for Champions League spots, because that's what Lyon should be aiming at. When you look at what Ligue 1 is going to be for the second half of the season, just if Genesio can do that, first of all, I can't see why he would leave or why he would be threatened. But it's nice to see that he didn't try something too complicated and fancy, and that it just worked. And why shouldn't have? Because it was against a side that was really just not in the same league. So a very logical result, all in all.
Well, it's interesting. So for me to see this 4-3-3, well, I think it works well for the players he has at his disposal. The real question has to be how will Genesio adapt this upon the return of Nabil Fekir? I mean, the reason, let's not forget that Fournier had been so persistent with the diamond shape 4-4-2 was that it had done so well to get the best out of Lacazette and Fekir in the previous season, playing the ball along the ground, a lot of very quick football. Clinton Ng was a big part of that as well. Even in his departure, that was sort of the aesthetic that he sought to play. So. I think this is a really interesting turn of events because I don't see necessarily a natural position for Fekir in the 4-3-3, and it also, will mean, as you rightly mentioned, Philip, that perhaps one of Lacazette or Bovu will hit the road, being that a 4-3-3, if that's how Genesio wants to operate, can really only include one of them. I mean, Lacazette's played on the wings at various times in his career. Back when the club had both Lisandro Lopez and Bafé Gomis. He would often play wide on the right or wide on the left, but I think at this point in his career, he's not going to take too kindly to a potential shift of position there. So, obviously he was injured for this match, but I think the future remains unwritten a little bit in this case. If Genesio really feels that a 4-3-3 is the best way to go forward, you kind of have to wonder how that's going to shift and adjust once they have their full complement of players at their disposal.
I agree completely, but one thing I would say, last thing on the tactical point of view, is that they did play straight at the back. They did play 4-4-2 diamond shaped. It didn't work, and every time they played 4-3-3, they do. I mean, they didn't win every game, or they probably didn't win more than one or two. But at least it looked structured. It looked like everybody knew where they were going to be placed, because that diamond shaped 4-4-2 is a very complicated formation to play. You need you need the right players to do that, and. I don't know if we actually talked about Fournier Sackin and his assistant manager getting the job, but I think Fournier probably could have saved himself some time by playing it a bit more often, knowing that Fekir was key to this diamond shaped 4-4-2, and that he could have bought him a couple of games or so, in my opinion.
It's interesting to think that Fournier never decided to go with a 4-3-3 once Fekir had gone out, and it maybe suited his players a little bit more. But I'm in the camp that I think Nabil Fekir can work in a 4-3-3, but it would be adapted slightly with him playing out on the right and coming in a lot more a la Antoine Griezmann probably in his first year at Atletico when he wasn't in the sort of 4-4-2 they are now. I think, and then eventually with the sale of the probably likely sale of Lacazette or the moving on of Beauville at some point, that he will become that front man and the focal point of the team. But going back to what you were mentioning, Philip, I'll pop that to Eric. What did you think of Hubert Fournier's departure? Was it the right decision and was it the best time with that winter break to make a change?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially thinking now about I was on the other side of the fence on this argument prior to his dismissal, but now that it's happened, and now that we can see Lyon back in action, just that slowness to adapt that we've talked about, that he didn't seek to build a team in a proper way, both in the transfers that he brought in and the tactics he was playing, and that to me speaks to a manager who, and on top of all the issues they've had in the dressing room, that to me really speaks to a manager who was operating out of his depth. And it's a shame because he had done so well the previous season, but the pieces that he had to put together could have worked in a certain way, but particularly in attack and central defense, he didn't. He just seemed to operate with a real stubbornness that was, almost mind-boggling particularly after the run of results that Lyon had over the past 6 weeks or so, prior to the winter break, because I think they're winless in 6th in the league, elimination from the Champions League after they had their fate in their own hands as late as the next to last match day. Just really a litany of bad decisions and bad blood in the locker room, and it was really disappointing to see. And I think at this point, Genesio is the kind of pair of safe hands, if you will, and I think that he's got a real chance to do the obvious, if you will, and play Lyon in a way that makes sense. And knock on wood, we could see a return to success of the likes of Remy Gard, someone who knows the club inside and out and knows the strengths of the young players. I'm thinking about the likes of a Kalulu or a Ghezal, could potentially really be a breakout player through the run-in.
I haven't I haven't read a whole deal about this Genesio guy. I actually never heard of him beforehand, apart from being the assistant manager, obviously. A bit of one or two articles saying he was a bit of a suck-up to Olasun Lacombe, so the chairman and the sporting director, respectively, except to Gard. He always got on fine with Gard, but every time it is said, it is rumored in a few articles that I read that he was basically foul-mouthing Fournier when things starting to go a bit edgy. So yeah, that's basically all I know about Genesio, unfortunately.
Well, following on from that, Eric, and the last point we'll sort of make on Lyon at this moment, do you think Genesio can be a long-term addition? Can he remain in the job if he proves himself, or maybe a bigger name might come across at some point?
I think that with Lyon's youth policy, a bigger name isn't necessarily what's needed. It's someone who knows the club's culture. If we look at the who's had success, who understands the club's culture, if we look at how they've had success in recent years, I mean, what Remy Gard achieved was, outstanding. And Genesio, doesn't have a ton of managerial experience. He had been manager at Besançon for a bit, about a decade ago, but he's been an assistant with Lyon in the interim. But
It didn't go well, did it? I think it lasted what, a year, even
yeah,
less.
no,
I think,
it didn't. That's what I'm saying. I think
yeah.
but I think that a decade on working in a top level club, it's been in the Champions League for the most part. I think will have given Genesio the chance to evolve and adapt as a manager and as an individual. And I do think he deserves a chance. If he can put Lyon in the top three come the end of the season, I do think his contract should be renewed. I don't know, what sort of a big name manager that Lyon could really attract. I mean, let's be honest. Besides Bielsa's appointment, there hasn't exactly been a plethora of quote unquote name managers coming to Ligue 1. I mean, the big foreign appointments that we've seen over the past few years are the likes of a Jardim, a Michel, but Jardim's a young manager who hadn't really proved himself to any great extent and had a history of a very short stints at his clubs, success notwithstanding. Michel had somewhat of an uneven experience during his career as well. I don't think people are exactly trying to scale the walls to manage in Ligue 1. It's a very physical and difficult league to have success in, and I would honestly sort of struggle to see what sort of big outside candidate Lyon would be able to attract. So I think for that reason, and for we've really yet to see what Genesio can do. I do think he deserves more of a chance. Beyond the season, if he can achieve a moderate level of success in the league, and hey, perhaps in the cups as well. Lyon are still alive in 3 competitions, and there's if they can get past PSG in the Coupe de la Ligue, who knows?
There's hope yet. Is
Cups.
what the statement is, isn't it?
The cups are definitely a bonus to them. It's very important that they go as far as they can, which will probably be PSG. But a big win against, say, Marseille in the Coupe de France would be great. Would be really uplifting for this side. I mean, they really do need it to get back to get that second spot.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, they need to really just build on this 7-0 win and take the momentum with them into the league. We'll move on to Paris Saint-Germain, who eventually squeezed past Rascal, who proved to be a little bit of a rascal in the end, with a pretty attacking lineup. They had to wait an hour for the breakthrough. Was their starting 11 a little disrespectful to the small club, Philip?
I really don't think so, because when I look at the first 11, I only see 2 players who are not playing week in, week out in Ligue 1. There's Kimpembe, who has played a bit, and Augustin as well. I mean, granted, they haven't started or haven't been on the bench every other weekend, but Augustin does have 6 games to his name in Ligue 1. All right, 5 of those are substitutes, and most of them are only for 10 minutes. And Kimpembe has also already played actually already started a game against at Lorient. That was. So I mean, I was actually expecting more of Nkunku and Genda, and even Meite to make some kind of appearance. Maybe not starting, but I didn't really see. I mean, I'm not really surprised that Blanc decided to give those 2 their chance against third tier opposition. I mean, I don't really have a problem with Blanc's tinkering there.
It is interesting. I think more from the fact there's only one Kimpembe as a recognised centre back was an interesting choice, and a very attacking lineup.
Well, Mata has played there before in the past, both for PSG and for Milan, if I recall correctly. I mean, obviously it's been sort of a situation where he's been drafted in because of injury, but I wouldn't see that as an insult. I mean, for me also, I mean, starting Blaise Matuidi, I mean, this player who's played so many matches this season,
Yeah.
if you're going to rest him, seems like the perfect opportunity to do it. Yet Blanc didn't feel the need to. So I mean that to me speaks volumes about the way he attacked this game. I mean, perhaps playing Rabiot. Maybe the team were showing a little bit of a creative influence, but I mean, Pastore is injured. Lucas comes off the bench. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it as I see it as just being rotation, to be honest.
I think
Yeah, plus, I'm actually extremely surprised that the Coupe de France was being played this weekend and not the weekend after that one, meaning we only had one weekend without any football, which is very rare in France, because the Coupe de France games, the opening games, were actually played on January 2nd, which is absolutely unheard of in France. I mean, you always get this is obviously a calendar issue because the 31st was on a Thursday, but they do like to usually give 2 full weeks, which is really 2 full weekends, which is actually 3 weeks rest to the players, because when you look at it, I mean, what did the players do? Nice have just scored against Rennes, by the way. What did the players do, especially PSG? I mean, they did go to Qatar to play Inter Milan. I don't even feel that PSG had a winter break right now. They could. I mean, they haven't. They're not under a massive under any massive pressure. But you get off 2 weeks, and during those 2 weeks, you go to Qatar to play a friendly. Sounds like a lot of work for a rest to me.
Almost sounds as much work as I can remember Man City last season having a friendly in Dubai during the Premier League season, which still seems crazy. But it took them a long while to break down their hosts, Eric. Was it a bit of a surprise that they couldn't quite get through a couple more goals than just the one from Zlatan?
I mean, yeah, like I said, if playing what often seemed to be a little bit more of a diamond with Rabiot at the head of midfield, you're really relying on Matuidi's pace, Verratti playing balls over the top. There's not necessarily a natural creative player in this squad until Lucas came on. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's no Di Maria, there's no Pastore, there's no natural creative out there to foster goal scoring opportunities, and I think the match played like that. I mean, Wascahal were always going to set up defensively, playing what it really amounted to a 4-5-1, trying to hit PSG on the counter, and they were very solid, and credit to them. I mean, the PSG players, Blaise Matuidi was one that I saw, have come out in praise for Wascahal and how well they played, and to have a French international, one of the world's best midfielders, saying that, and, he's not the type of person, in my experience, who is really given to hyperbole, and I think that credit needs to be given to this team in the way that they set up defensively, and you might fault Blanc for not putting someone a little bit more creative. I mean, Lucas is someone who's been in and out of the side this season since Di Maria's arrival, and you might have wanted him to start from the season. There's been some rumblings about him wanting to leave owing to his lack of playing time, but yeah, I think it's a creditable performance from Wascahal, as well as much as it was perhaps a little bit of a bizarre tactical setup from Blanc.
I actually don't have a problem with the personnel Blanc used, but I do dislike these type of midfielders with central midfielders only. I think you should always have width. Even though I know that Matuidi is more playing on is a sort of middle left kind of midfielder. He plays on the left side of that 4-3-3. So I'm not really surprised that they didn't create that much with that kind of formation.
Yeah, I mean, Aurier and Kurzawa like to get forward too, but I think they're sort of a piece with Matuidi in that they're very direct players. They're not gonna play the ball in the air as much. They're gonna want to run with the ball at their feet. And if you've got an opponent that's crowding midfield and sitting deep, the way Wascahal were, it's gonna be a lot harder for players like that is Aurier and Kurzawa, to have the level of success that they would really want to have.
This is interesting. I do want to go back to the team selection, but more like Eric has touched upon, the players that were left out of the game. I mean, Marquinhos came onto the game for the last 10 minutes, but surely, with the lack of game time he's missed this season, Philip, with behind David Silva and Thiago Silva, surely should have played. David Luiz, apologies.
Just looking back at what type of season it has been for him, hasn't been very nice for him because first season he starts, he even plays right back. He plays great games at right back, but all year is just having a sensational season. He's not basically having the manager's favours, and I do agree that it would have been quite good to have him in central defence, but just wasn't to be. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with him. I do hope that he stays at the club. He's a very versatile. I don't think we can say that about Thiago Silva or David Luiz. In versatile, I mean, he can play centre back and full back. And that's quite it, really. It's a real shame, and I do hope he doesn't leave in January, because he would move abroad. Obviously, he wouldn't go to another Ligue 1 club.
Eric, what do you think to the Marquinhos situation? He has come out and said he wants more game time at this stage of his career. Can he get that at Paris Saint-Germain?
I don't think so. I've written his profile for the GFF N100, which if you haven't checked out, you should. It's available on the website.
It's very good.
It's terrific.
We all wrote pieces, but Marquinhos is a player who I've actually followed with quite a bit of interest even before joining the GFFN team. It's bizarre to me. He obviously doesn't have the same sort of imposing physical presence that the likes of a Silva or Luiz have, or even Mamadou Sakho before that. But at the same time, there's something to be said for his ability on the ball. He's got a fairly elegant ability to tackle. He's certainly a very cultured center back. But I think that the way Blanc wants to approach the center back position is of a more imposing, physical, bruising player, and it makes sense given the way that Ligue 1 is. And yeah, I think for me that it's obvious that as long as Laurent Blanc remains the manager, and that Marquinhos isn't going to have a place in the 11. Bringing in David Luiz, that's all you need to know. The fact that again, David Luiz is a Brazil international. He's had good success at Benfica and Chelsea, but to bring him in when he previously been largely used as a central midfielder at Chelsea to play center back, especially when he was more often known at Chelsea for these long, crazy runs and not tracking back. It's not exactly something that's going to inspire confidence as a player and a central defender. I think that really says what you need to know. He's a fine player. He's been linked with the likes of Manchester United, Barcelona. A really cultured player, and still only 21. But he doesn't seem to be tailored for the way that Blanc wants to play, and I can't necessarily say I blame him. I'd honestly like the club to keep him, being that he can provide cover for both center back and right back. But since Vanderveer hasn't left, then really he's third choice in a number of positions, and for his own interest and for wanting to be a part of the Brazil national team going forward, I do think he should seek his fortune somewhere else, as it were. He's certainly a talented player. He just doesn't fit with Blanc's style.
He certainly shouldn't be playing sitting on a bench every weekend. That's for sure, and getting limited starts, which is the case, unfortunately. Last night was at Nice in December. not had a proper run in the team since September. So it's probably time to move.
It is a real shame, yeah. Yeah, and like we were reading some of the tweets from our colleague Brendan McFarlane the other day that I agreed with, that Eric touched upon about the physicality of especially young defenders being overseen a little bit. I think he's a terrific defender personally, especially positionally, which I think is most important for a defender, as a la watching David Luiz at Chelsea. It wasn't very fun at times for their fans, but hopefully that might mean move to Manchester United. You never know, that might be quite good. we'll move on for the rest of the cup results from the weekend, and we'll go through quite a few different ones here. We'll start with Monaco, who put 10 past Saint-Jean-Boulier this weekend. Traoré scored 4 and then got himself sent off. So that was a pretty entertaining appearance from him, wasn't it, Philip?
Especially in one half. That's a great that's a magic of the Coupe de France, if you will. So 4 goals, then he gets himself sent off. An incident with the Saint-Jean-Boulieu defender Mariotti, and then another 5 goals erupt in the second half. Monaco just don't usually are one of those sides who destroy lower league sides. They're not particularly used to getting knocked out by the lower league sides, but we'll get something like, I don't know, a 1-0 or a 3-1 against Ligue 2 Nationale or CFA sides. That's basically it. So quite surprising actually at this scoreline. It is quite unusual actually, but quite surprised, and I'm sure the Minnows will be quite happy to have gone to Louis II and scored 2 goals, which is quite good. It's just that they conceded 10.
That's the real negative, but it's take any positives you can. That's the right kind of attitude. Eric, what did you think to Monaco's performance? Can this be something they can really build upon?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, Traoré, since coming to Monaco, has dealt with a lot of injuries, and also, he's what, 6'8"? He's in. He didn't exactly fit with the 4-3-3 that Jardim was trying to play last year. Martial was a much more natural fit, and we saw, him rightly get a move to Manchester United as a result of his performances in that system. But this season, Monaco looked to be playing a bit more of a 4-2-3-1. The club have come out and said that Stéphane El Shaarawy will not play another minute with them, so that decreases Monaco's options even further. So I think that this could be a real chance for Traoré to perhaps finally show what he's made of for the club. I think he arrived in winter of 2014, so it's been 2 years now, maybe. He came in and was loaned to Everton. I think I'm remembering that correctly. Yeah, I think that he could. He's a player of. He's an Ivorian international. He's a talented player, and he'll be 26 in the summer, so he's not exactly young anymore. I think he should be looking at being the focal point of this attack. He's got so many wonderful creative players around him. We're looking at the likes of Thomas Lemar, João Moutinho, Ivan Caballero, the winger, and his competition for the number 9 role in that 4-2-3-1 is Guido Carrillo, who arrived in the summer and hasn't really impressed to this point. So, yeah, this, again, it's a 7th division side. Let's take this with a grain of salt, but Traoré had a good goal-scoring record. He was 1-2, give or take, through his time in the Russian league, and I think this is really his time to break through for Monaco. With El Shaarawy no longer being an option.
It is interesting, and we were discussing on the Mercato, if you check that out afterwards, that they were fed up with Lassina Traoré a week ago. They're not so fed up now. He scored 4, but they might be fed up again that he was sent off so sillily. But we move on to a team that were eliminated. One of the only Ligue 1 teams eliminated. Reims were eliminated by national side Chambly. Philip, that's a really poor result in 4-1, wasn't it?
It's quite unusual. It was quite an unusual weekend because 17 Ligue 1 sides did progress, and of those three, you had Reims, who was basically the big victim of lower league sides beating a top division side. Not particularly surprised, and these results never really go through Mina sacking to the manager. It's basically. Again, there's a game coming very, very close after New Year's during the Christmas period, and I just don't see that much in it. To be honest, I don't see. It is bad. It is very, very bad to lose 4-1 to Division 3 side, but I think they basically are not too bothered from what I saw of that game.
Eric, a result like this surely puts a poor run in the league as well, puts Olivier Guégan under serious pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. This is probably in factoring in injuries, Reims' first choice starting 11. So that's and to concede 4. I mean, okay, we talk about cup shocks. They're a last minute winner or losing on penalties, but let's be honest here. Chambly scored 4 goals without answer. Reims' goal was, I believe, Nico de Préville late on.
Last minute penalty.
Yeah, this was a comprehensive defeat, and to a non-professional team. Again, as you rightly said, I don't think this is the kind of result that is going to directly get him fired, but it's certainly ratcheted up the pressure on Guégan. Absolutely.
There'd be a witch hunt for him if this was a Premier League team, I tell you that. But surprised that it's such a potentially humble response from France. But you can't carry on for much longer for that side. Are they going to be where Philip always predicts they will be by the bottom of the table again?
Probably going down again.
Exactly.
Which means surviving.
So change might be needed there soon. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Bordeaux really left it late to beat Fréjus Saint Raphael. Philip, that was a nail biter for them, wasn't
it? Yeah. Not not entirely surprised given the state Bordeaux are in. From what I can gather, is that Fréjus are the type of side that are not doing, not having such a poor season and are relishing that kind of game. So they're having a terrible season, and they basically they've got nothing to lose. That's basically it, and they were leading 2-1. They were leading 2-1 with 30 minutes to go. So that tells you to me it's a bit of that kind of story where Bordeaux had a close shave. But again, I don't think I would have been particularly surprised to see Bordeaux lose that 1-1, and that would have put serious pressure on Sagnol. But they did pull through in the end, and Sagnol can stay for a couple of games longer. I'm not. I would have much more fear for Sagnol's position than Guégan's position. Even though he did win he did win the Coupe de France game. Bordeaux is a much bigger club, a much bigger place, much higher expectations. It was a close shave. So good for Sagnol, but it also means that something's seriously wrong at Bordeaux, and not just during this festive period.
Yeah, well, carry on with that, Eric. Bordeaux seem like in a real rut at the moment, don't they?
I mean, what can you say about this team? Their inconsistency defined. They had that thumping victory over Monaco in the Coupe de la Ligue, and you said, okay, this is a fluent attacking Bordeaux team doing it against Monaco, who have been uneven this season, but are generally known for their defensive solidity. Pardon me. He's brought through some more of these young, exciting players, the likes of Adam Unas in particular was really impressed this season. Diego Roland seems like he's coming into form a little bit more over the past month or so. But to have this unnecessarily nervy finish against a third-tier side is, again, it just brings back all the same doubts that we've had about Sagnon over the season's first 4 months, and it's frustrating too because at the tail end of last season, he had brought in Clement Chantôme, changed the system around, qualified for the Europa League, done well to get through the qualifying rounds and into the group stage, something that French sides had struggled with in the recent past, likes of Lyon and Saint-Etienne over the past few seasons. And it seemed like he was, one of France's hottest young managers. But I think that the way he's set this team out a lot of weekends, changing the tactical system, playing the likes of Henry Saive in defensive midfield, Nicolas Palois at left back, he just doesn't seem to have a command of this team tactically, and it's a really frustrating situation, considering the potential that I think Bordeaux had going into this season. I mean, earlier in the season, I was a guest on another podcast, and I did a Ligue 1 preview, and I tipped Bordeaux as a Champions League dark horse. I mean, you thought about the likes of Diabate coming back, the improvements that the young players had made. Obviously the loss of Mariano was difficult to overcome with how influential he'd been last season, but I thought Bordeaux would have a great season, and instead, they're mid-table strugglers. It's for a club of their means and their success, I think it might be time to look at somebody new. If not now, perhaps in the summer.
You also mentioned that on this podcast to remind you, so you've got that sticker in a few places, but I won't tease you too much. I said Lorient will go down, and that doesn't look like anything likely to happen. Saint-Etienne were another team that just about squeezed through, needing penalties. It's Rouen L'Etape. Philippe, that was a close call, wasn't it?
Yeah, the highlight of the game was, as often the case in these games decided by penalties, was the penalty shootout. With Stéphane Ruffier, the Saint-Etienne goalkeeper, saying something to a Rouen L'Etape player along the lines of, "I play in the Europa League and you do not, therefore I'm much better than you," which caused havoc, of course, online on Twitter. And Ruffier has since come out and used, shall we say, kinder words to explain his behaviour. But it's Ruffier still qualified Saint-Etienne for the Coupe de France for the next round, and I'm sure the whole squad are very grateful to him. First game of the year, not a hard game on paper, but they still needed their quality goalkeeper. They didn't for instance give the goalkeeper's jersey to Jessie Moulin. You just don't know what would have happened, but this is a great achievement for Ruffier. Probably not the right attitude after winning the game for his club. But I'm sure he won't be the last one to make this mistake.
I'll tell you one thing: if Ruffier made that insult in England to an English team that he plays in the Europa League and they don't, I think they might have got laughed in the face rather than started any brawls or anything on Twitter, I think.
Well, to be honest, I mean, it's not exactly. Yeah, if you wanted to provoke the opposition, Champions League probably would have worked, but it's not much in it really. I mean, I think it's pretty much the same thing in France and in England. It's just a way of saying I play European football, and you play for Rouen L'Etape, which is not a nice thing to say.
Still might have got a laugh in the face I think if it was even me, I think. But Saint-Etienne, Eric, just about snicked through. it's a tough one for them at the moment. Again, they're very inconsistent at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, again, we have to think about injuries to the likes of Beric and TFL Catherine. I think that they've had a decent season. I mean, they're not exactly where they want to be in the league, but they're still in sixth place, only 2 points off the Champions League. They got through a very tough Europa League group. I think once you factor in injuries and the departure of Gradel and Tabanu as well, but I think this has been a fine season for Saint Etienne, and particularly Teofil Catherine. I thought he was magnificent last year, and I think that having him back will make an even bigger difference. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see them pretty much right where they were last season, rather. Knocking on the door of the Champions League and maybe even sneaking in with how the likes of Lyon and Marseille have struggled this season.
Well, you mentioned Marseille there, Eric, and they needed penalties as well against Caen. The heroics of Steve Mondonda again, Philip.
Yeah. So this game at Caen, a really good game. Very good pace to the game. I was especially impressed with Andy Delors, who played a good, strong physical side, which we are quite used to. If there are any Wigan listeners, Andy Delors can still hold the ball up front on his own against a very good defender like Nicolas Nkoulou. He got Rikik sent off. Rikik, another Marseille centre back, which was 68 minutes, something like that. And Caen didn't take their chances, unfortunately. They had good chances. They played. To me, they were better in the game, shall we say? But they didn't take their chances. There was an absolutely hilarious chance trying to be taken by Ocampos, who not only blazed it wide but made the ball go extremely slow when it left his foot. It's all over Twitter if you want to check it out. But Mondonda did just like Rouffier and ensured that Marseille would not be this Coupe de France round scalp, which is all that has been asked. But it wasn't particularly great performance by Marseille in basically in the middle of the pitch and in other areas. I thought Caen edged it and probably deserved to win that game.
Eric, rather than the result, I wanted to focus very quickly on a performance that might be a little bit harsh, but I thought was pretty abysmal from Lucas Ocampos in that game, wasn't it?
I actually did not have a chance to watch this match, so I really can't comment on that. Ocampos has been linked with Fiorentina, and it wouldn't surprise me. But what would surprise me is that a club that are battling for the title in Italy would think that this player, based on his performances, is worth having. I think that he's been, inconsistent and ineffective. I'm surprised that Marseille made the move permanent for Monaco. And I'm frankly not sure where he fits into Marseille as a consistent part of the 11 or even the match day 18. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I'm going to be incredibly harsh then and say I don't know how he fits into most football teams at the moment. He was abysmal last night. I think he missed 4 or 5 chances that he should have could have put one away. And like you mentioned earlier, Philip, there's a very comical strike where he's put a wonderful ball to him. I can't quite remember who played it, but it was a wonderful.
If you side foot it, honestly, if you side foot it, it should add pace to the ball, but somehow he manages to, not to. Basically, I spoke to many Marseille fans today about that, and they all adamant that he is the worst player of their squad currently, much worse than Boada.
I've no idea how he managed to make that shot do that, but he did somehow, and it makes the money that Monaco shelled out for him a couple of years ago even more outstanding. But we'll move on before I get a bit of a headache. Leo needed a penalty to win themselves against Amiens in regular time. Flip? Are you pulling that one up, Philip?
I actually haven't had the chance either to look up that game. Seems like a fair result. I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot to say on that one.
Eric, what do you think to the result for Lille?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a disappointment. I think that they seem like they're starting to click a little bit more going forward under Antonetti, and to just scrape this, I think, maybe isn't the result that you'd want. But I think it also remains to be seen, how the club want to focus on the league versus the cups. I mean, we've talked frankly about, how the race for European competition is pretty open. They'll continue to have pretty good defense. Right now, they're on 24 points. The last place for European competition is Nice and Saint-Etienne in 5th and 6th on 29. So considering where they were to start the season, this really isn't that surprising that they want to focus a little bit more on the league. That being said, they were handed a pretty easy draw against Trélissac in the next round, who I believe are in the 4th division. I don't know if either of you know that off the top of your head. Yes, the 4th division. I think that perhaps maybe a cup run could be something that an unexpected bonus to sort of galvanize this team and to help Antonetti get more of a handle on some of the younger players who he has who haven't been featuring as much, the likes of maybe an Adama Samore, Yaya Boa, the Manchester City loanee, just to know a little bit more what he's got front to back in this squad rather than just his starting 11.
It is interesting, and we'll leave the Coupe de France there by mentioning our.
The most interesting result.
Go ahead.
No question. Though one last thing is Troyes winning their first football match of the season. That must be something. Won 4-3 at Dunkerque, and they were 3-2 down at half time of extra time. If you follow me, that's good. That's pretty good. Definitely the highlight of the round.
Might that inspire the greatest comeback in French football history?
Oh,
that's for sure.
If only. If only.
It's symptomatic of their season that they actually go to extra time, and then they were still down in extra time, that they've managed to claw it back. But good to see them win a game, as you say, Philip.
6 months later, it's quite good.
Hopefully the fans can take that for the rest of the season. We move on then to another managerial change during the winter break as Roland Courbis handed in his resignation. In comes the managerial team of Pascal Baillis and Bruno Martini. What do you think of that move, Philip?
I was extremely surprised to see Courbis not sacked. They basically left. What Courbis said was at the beginning of the season, things were not going too well with Louis and Laurent Nicolin, which are the chairman and his son, chairman of Montpellier and his son. But they convinced him to stay because Montpellier were in a bit of a rut. And to me, it just goes to show you that having a good relationship with Nicolin is extremely important, because I just can't see someone like Jean Fernandez having that kind of relationship with Nicolin, and Nicolin saying, okay, you have to stay, you have to help us out, otherwise, we're going to go down. And he did. I mean, Courbis did a good job in the first half of the season, and now he's giving the helm to two quite inexperienced managers. We've had that I believe at Bastia was Printemps being co-manager at Bastia. I honestly don't think that it'll turn out better for Montpellier this way, because I think Corby's had a great relationship with Nicolas, and Montpellier were on the up. There was Ninga who was getting game time. He was not playing too badly, and Montpellier were getting better. So I think the Nicolas are very sad to see Corby's leave, and we can only bet on how well this is going to be for Pascal Baisse and Bruno Martini, who are experienced in their own way. But when it comes to Ligue 1, it's not exactly very shall we say very experienced. We'll see. But I still don't think this will mean relegation from Montpellier. Just that Corby's probably could have taken them higher than those two will.
Eric, a quick word on Corby's, who just seemed burned out at the end, didn't he?
Yeah, it is a shame. I mean, I think that especially tactically, Montpellier had really started to get things right. Playing that counterattack. Sanson was back. Ninga had really sort of exploded over the past month or so. My only hope is that these two new managers can continue the improvements that he'd made. Corby's proved himself to be a wonderful servant to the club, and was able to always get more out of the team than you would expect, looking at their squad. So, a job well done to him, and Godspeed. I mean, a really impressive manager, given especially the financial circumstances at Montpellier in the wake of that Champions League and championship-winning seasons.
And very finally, we've learned in the last couple of hours that Zinedine Zidane will be taking over at Real Madrid, replacing the Rafael Benitez. Philip, what are your thoughts of the French legend taking over at Los Blancos?
I think that it will all end in tears. I don't see this having a good effect on the club, on Zidane, at all, basically.
It will be an interesting one.
Unfortunately, I mean, what experience does the guy have? A guy like Benitez, who won the Champions League, won the UEFA Cup, won several cup competitions. He's well, to be honest, I mean, I'm not surprised he's been let go so early after coming in, because basically the whole football planet knew that why would you get rid of Ancelotti when you just got to a Champions League semi-final? I just don't really understand that. But no, I don't think this is a good appointment at all. And I think Zidane will have trouble, because he really does look now like a one club person. I mean, he's been with Real Madrid for what, 10 years now?
That's around that time.
It's once managers don't last a very long time, and I just don't see this being an exception to Zidane. And why should it be? Just because he played for Real Madrid? I mean, no. I'm sorry, Zizou.
Eric, very quickly on Zidane, is this the right move for him?
I don't think so. I think with the turmoil the club had been under Benitez, he's walking into a very difficult and dangerous situation. And for Benitez to go, they should have had an experienced manager lined up to replace him, front to back. And whether it was a caretaker or what, it's not the right time for Zidane to come in right now. Not with the season that Real are having. I mean, they're only a point ahead of Villarreal in fourth. The title, with the way things are in Spain, is looking very dangerous. Looking at a very tough proposition. Maybe they'll have some success in the Champions League, but yeah, not the right time at all for me.
This is basically if Manchester United, to those who are listening us maybe from England, if Manchester United actually sacked Van Gaal and said, let's take the first guy we meet from the golden generations of the Nevilles, Beckham, but Scholes, etc., etc. It's like let's put David Beckham at the helm. It's just senseless management as usual at Real Madrid.
Keep it quiet then. I would probably prefer Giggs at this moment in time, but keep that. We'll move swiftly past that. Anyway, that's all from us this week. My thanks to Eric and Philip, and for all of you for tuning in. Please look out for the GFFM Mercato show, which should be coming out later this week, and also make sure, as Eric said earlier, download the GFFM 100. It's got some fantastic pieces from fantastic writers, not including myself. Thanks for joining us this evening, and have a good night.